What's up, guys and girls? It's your boy The Hunter Fisher. Welcome back to the Epi Banger video. And today, guys and girls, in inspiration of the last YouTube video I just posted, I wanted to actually talk more about the Janko rod, but actually not only just the Janko rod, but the reel that I put on it. So that this combo is going to be what I ideally think is the best entry-level BFS combo for whatever type of fishing you want to do. The reason why I think that, we'll go into depth with. But I'm going to be talking about, of course, the gear first and telling you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So this rod that I'm talking about is the Janko Fishing Double Down BFS rod. It's a brand new BFS rod to the American side of the market. It's $140 on Bait Finesse Empire right now. It's rated for an 1/80th of an ounce to up to an 1/8 of an ounce. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to cast that light before, but with casting gear, I would say that's a little more than just difficult. It takes some time to get used to that, even with spinning gear. But really most of the time when people are using those weights, they're using it for trout fishing. So this rod could be used for trout fishing. Now, personally, I've never tried it, but I heard that a lot of stalker trout would love to eat on things kind of like this mule jig right here. This is a 32nd of an ounce jig right here with the horsefly. If you guys want to see any of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about today, all of it's going to be down in the description below. And anytime you guys click on those links, buy anything from those links, it helps me out a ton. So I really appreciate it. This rod is not only just ideal for stalker trout, just as I said, but specifically, they've actually made this rod for crappie fishing, or as we call them down here, speckled perch. So crappie fishing, you really want a rod that has a lot of flex to it. So this rod is a moderate fast action. It starts bending very far down the rod. And then while a lot of people may not be used to or like that from bass fishing, whenever you're coming from over for bass fishing, you're always used to everything being a fast action or higher. Now, the problem with fast action rods, especially in BFS, is they're very prone to breakage at the tip. The reason why is if you have less area to bend and more essentially backbone, you're gonna be, if you're bending up here, that's less even to break. It's hard to explain, but essentially it's more prone to breakage. So I'm not gonna really dive too deep into it, but this is a moderate fast action rod, like I was saying. It's also 6'6", so it's not too long to where if you were in cover situations, you could still accurately cast. And that's the whole point of this setup. So if you're throwing jigs around docks, especially for crappie, you're going to absolutely wear them out. Another one of my absolute favorite features of this rod, I know a lot of people have kind of been skeptical about it, it is the grip. After fishing with it for at least 3 days now, I've fished with it for a total of 3 days actually, and I can say that I absolutely love the grip. The grip is actually a lot thinner than it would appear on camera. I know a lot of people have said that. The grip itself, I mean, it's gotta be about that big. I would say it's just about as big as a $50 coin or a dollar coin. I haven't seen a $50 or dollar coin in years, so don't ask me how big that actually is. But if I had to guess, this is probably only 3/4 of an inch to an inch wide. So it's really not that big, but I absolutely love this grip. The reason why is because it's just the right amount of length to where, say, if I'm using a jerkbait, it's not smacking me on the inside of my elbow a ton. It's very light and very comfortable. And especially with cork, I've always been a big cork guy. I won't lie, it's always been a little bit more comfortable with me, but over time, I'm starting to figure out that even when you apply things like U40, it still can have an uncomfortable feel to it. I kind of started to hate the feeling of dry or even completely wet cork, and it seems to attract a lot of dirt, especially whenever you even have cork sealant on it. Now, granted, I still love cork, but I think I love these wind grips, these wind style grips a little bit more. This isn't wind grip specifically, but it's very similar, and I absolutely love it. The look of the rod, I don't know if you guys are buying for aesthetics, but if you're buying a aesthetically pleasing rod, I think that this fits the bill for you too. Now, that is all I can say about the rod so far as spec-wise. Let's talk about the reel, because if you guys were on this video, the reason why is because you're wanting to get into BFS. You need starter setup. This isn't going to be the best budget setup. The reason why is because, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, BFS is not as cheap as what I think it should be right now, but I won't lie, you'll get the quality you want out of these setups. You won't be wasting your money whenever I tell you, oh yeah, go buy a Zephyr. Not that a Zephyr is a waste of money. I think that the Zephyr has a different place than the Tsurinoya Dark Wolf Ultra in the BFS game. This reel, I literally have multiple videos on my channel now. I have multiple videos on Instagram. You guys can go check them out. I am able to cast down to an 1/80th of an ounce with 0.6 Go braid, which is equivalent to 10-pound braid. Now, if you guys understand anything about casting gear, casting down to an 1/80th is insane. I'm casting down to 0.7 of a gram. That is less than most trout magnets. I don't know if you guys have ever used a trout magnet. I actually have not ever used a trout magnet, fun fact, but most time people tell you need reels like the Daiwa Alphas Air to cast a trout magnet. This lure right here that's on right now weighs 1.2 grams. That is just barely heavier than a gram. This reel is under $100. It clocks in at $95.99, I believe, on the Bait Finesse Empire website. And let me tell you, with a drag clicker, one of the lightest spools in the market, except until about recently with the Kestrel coming out. This used to have one of the most lightest spools in the market compared to other brands that came stock on a reel. Now, there's been some different braking mechanisms they tried with this reel. On my reel specifically, I actually have the dynamic braking that they tried for a little bit that was supposed to be similar to the Shimano FTB braking system, but I actually don't think it would make a huge difference either way. I still want to try to upgrade the magnets and see how they perform. But I definitely have considered actually upgrading the bearings. So this reel has a lot of abilities to upgrade, to change it, to make it more of what you want specifically. And this reel, stock, I'm telling you that this reel stock by itself can cast an 1/80th. It takes some time. I'm not telling you you're going to get this combo and you're gonna be able to cast an 1/80th of an ounce jig head. It's not at all what I'm gonna tell you, because it's not at all true. It takes some time to get used to casting that light. Now, anybody who's ever fished with me, they know how I cast. It's actually really funny because a lot of people say that I fish like a fly fisherman without a fly rod. I literally will wind back and forth sometimes with my rods. And the reason why is because I'm using the momentum of the setup to actually whip a cast out and get better distance. Now, that is one thing that has actually led me to figure out, why does this rod cast an 1/80th or a 32nd ounce jig head better than other combos I have? The reason why is because of its action. The moderate fast action, it takes less effort to get the rod to bend. The reason why is because it bends further down the rod. So whenever you're bending that rod back, that means it's easier to get more rod behind the lure, even when the lure itself is so light that it's hard to produce the velocity needed to get it to go 20 feet or 30 feet. This rod has the innate ability to load up the action and force it to at least get out there somewhat distance. I literally went out with an 1/80th ounce jig head the other day at one of the most pressured ponds in Tallahassee. I'm actually planning on doing a part 2 to that video once I get a GoPro, and I'm going to go fish it again and show you guys how awesome the 1/80th ounce jig heads can be with a horsefly on it. It's insane. Point is that this rod, the reason it took so long for them to pin down what exactly can they do to make this rod competitive with some of the best rods in the American industry right now, because the issue with the American industry is all of the rods cost almost $200 or more. If you guys want to pick up a Dobbins today, it is $190. Granted, it is probably one of the best rods out there for BFS in general. I have one right next to me right now. But the point is that this rod is enabling people like you who may be watching this video and want to get into BFS but are too scared or do not know how. Because you're gonna get burned if you end up buying a reel that doesn't do anything that you want it to do. And I can tell you right here, right now, that this Dark Wolf Ultra can cast down to an 1/80th, it can cast up to an 1/8. I have been so thoroughly impressed by this reel that when people ask me, what BFS reel should I get first? It's this reel. Do not get any other reel besides this reel. If you really wanted my honest opinion right now on, what is today, August something, 2022, buy the Dark Wolf Ultra if you're looking for a budget setup under $100 with the reel, and then you have a $140 rod, so you're just barely over 200 bucks, less than the price of a Corrado DC to get this fantastic setup so you can throw anything you want. So if you want to throw beetle spins, if you want to throw small Euro tackle EPF swims, you could throw it all the way on the 32nd ounce jig head if you wanted to, the 16th ounce jig head if you wanted to. You can do so much with this combo, it's crazy. I love this rod. I actually got to give them references. I give them recommendations for rods they should check out to get inspiration from. And I have been absolutely impressed by what they actually pumped out and did with Janko. Janko is one of the coolest companies I've ever had the pleasure with of talking. This is not me. I am not getting paid to tell you about this rod. I am not getting paid to even use this rod. I like using this rod because I like this rod. It looks beautiful. It's a 6'6", so it's on the shorter side for me personally, but I've actually learned to love that more than my 7-foot rods. The past week I've been fishing, I've only fished with this rod. I'm not going to tell you guys anything on this channel unless I truly believe in it. And this combo, if you guys are wanting to get in BFS, if you've been watching my content for a while, I'm telling you right now, go down in the description down below, pick up the Dark Wolf Ultra, pick up the Jenko Double Down, and pick out whether or not you want monofilament line or braided line. Now, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that before we go. But what I'm gonna say, essentially, I prefer PE line or braided line, and I've been trying out different options. I've been trying out, as you can see here, I've been trying out some 4-pound monofilament here in my Daiwa Alphas Air. This is 4-pound Crappie Max, and while it's nice and very durable, honestly, for the size, I kind of still prefer PE. The reason why is so I can cast very easily, and I feel like it's more manageable for me to deal with PE. Maybe I'm just picky and I'm a Floridian, so you kind of never want to go away from braid because there's always grass nearby. But I think I'm going to try some other different braid options to see what else I like more. Right now on my Dark Wolf Ultra is 0.6 Go braid, or otherwise known as 10-pound max breakage. I would suggest maybe going a little bit lighter. I would say in that 0.3 to 0.5 Go range, which I'm talking about, I think I'm saying 6-pound to max 9-pound braid. I'm saying 6 to 9-pound braid if you're using braid. The reason why is because you get a little bit more line and you also get more casting distance out of lighter line. The reason why, thinner diameter, cuts through air better, blah, 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 blah. Now, question is, you're wondering, well, do you use just straight braid? No, I still use a leader. On this line right now is actually 4-pound line, just exactly from that reel, tied with the FG knot. You guys probably can't even see that knot, it's so thin. Yeah, it's on my film right now. It's literally so thin because the braid is so thin and the line itself is so thin, and that helps you get so much better casting distance because your line's not getting caught up in your guides, which is actually another thing I wanted to talk about before I shut this down. If you guys notice on these rods, there you go. That is the first guide, that is the second guide, that is the third guide. One thing I've noticed in the BFS industry so far is everyone who makes a BFS rod creates it with micro guides. Now, micro guides are great. They're very nice. I think that they have their place. But I'm starting to think that if you're casting lightweight lures, either they can kill you or they can help you. And in the situation of the double down so far, it's only helped me. With these guides being a little bit larger, it doesn't produce extra blockage for line to go outside of the rod. I don't know if that's true. I can't really test it because there's no rods with micro guides in this exact loadout, so I can't exactly tell you. But I think that right now, the guides that they put on this rod are way more ideal for casting lightweight lures because your line's not getting caught up in it. It's not curling, because say if you're using monofilament, your line's gonna be curling from line memory and getting caught in those guides. I don't know if that's maybe the truth, I don't know if it is, but in my experience so far, I really love the way that they set up this rod. I couldn't have personally made a better rod, is what I would tell you. One more thing before I get off on another tangent, monofilament, if you want to find a good monofilament to use, I'm probably not the guy to talk to about that, to be honest with you, but I'm going to give you a recommendation. I'm probably only going to tell you use monofilament because, say, for example, if you want to throw a Rapala floater on this rod, fluorocarbon is going to keep your lure down there for longer and it's not going to work in the way that you want it to. So if you want my preference for line, I'm going to tell you to use monofilament or copolymer. One of my favorite lines I've ever used in nylon-based filaments is the Suffix Advanced 4-pound copolymer, and it's hard to find, so I doubt it's going to be very easy for you to get. So what I'm going to recommend is I'm going to say stick with anything Varivis on the Bait Finesse Empire website, and you're not going to be disappointed. I'll leave a link to all the braids that I recommend. I'll leave a link to all the nylon monofilament based lines that I recommend, or at least I think will be good for this stuff. And you guys can go work from there. But as far as poundage wise, I would say stick with 4 to 6. If you want to go lighter because you're only targeting bluegill and crappie and yellow perch, then stick with lighter if you want. Whatever you use on an ultralight spinning setup, use on this reel, because it's only going to perform the way you want it to if you have it set up the way you want it to. So say if you use 4-pound Crappie Max line from Bass Pro Shops, use it. I do not care if you buy anything from my links or buy anything from Bass Pro Shops. None of this stuff helps me, guys. As long as you show your support, that's all you can help me with, and I really appreciate everything so far. I think that is about all I've got to say for this combo so far. Remember, Tsurinoya Dark Wolf Ultra. I use the left-hand model. I'm ambidextrous, so I don't really have an issue using left hand. As you can see, this is my left-hand model, Dark Wolf Ultra, and there's my right-hand model, Alphys Air TW. I literally can use any hand model, it doesn't matter. I would say if you cast right-handed and you want to fish faster, get a left-hand model, get used to it, and you're going to see the difference that you will really appreciate when it comes to using left-handed reels. It's gonna be a little weird at first, but I highly recommend it because it will help you fish faster and more efficiently. And overseas, in Japan and stuff, they almost always fish with an opposite-handed reel. If they're right-handed people, they fish with a left-handed reel because it allows them to fish faster and more accurately. And in saltwater scene, they say that you can actually hook sit better with your dominant arm. So I'm always going to tell you, stick with the opposite of dominance, just because it's a recommendation. If you don't want to use that, you don't have to. I know people who still stick with the right. I still stick with the right on certain combos. If I'm fishing crankbaits, I'll still stick with the right. It doesn't really matter, but that is the Tsurinoya Dark Wolf Ultra, available on Bait Finesse Empire right now. I believe at the time of filming this video, they only have left-hand models in stock. In 2 to 3 weeks, which should be the end of August-ish. Don't take my word on it, but there's actually a feature on Bait Finesse Empire where you can go and you can actually have them email you when it comes back in stock. So if you go on there, set it up, you'll know when the right hands come back in stock, but right now there's only left hands. And the rod is called the Janko Double Down BFS rod. That's it right there. Sorry the butt is a little dirty right now. I'm actually hoping to go do some spec fishing later this week maybe, just to hopefully get to actually try this rod out on what it was designed for. This rod was specifically designed for crappie fishing because Janko is a crappie company. No, they're a great company. But essentially it's meant to throw things like these hair jigs right here for specs. Yeah, so that's a 16th ounce little ball head hair jig, and it's great. And it would work perfectly for throwing around for specs around docks, things like that, especially in the winter. Heck, back where my family's from, right now, I know they're biting on the lake because I could see it on Fish Brain. I'm like, oh man, I wish I was getting on some specs. But as far as this rod goes, I think it's absolutely perfect if you're wanting to throw beetle spins, rooster tails, if you're throwing Z-spenders. Now, something I would probably recommend maybe a little bit faster action if you're wanting to make specific setups for certain applications. That's something you can do with BFS too, guys. If you want to have specific setups for each type of technique, you can do that. And this rod really fits that ultralight BFS range. What I'm talking about is panfish, light bass, crappie. I think that I'm actually even going to get the chance to test this out in saltwater, see how it performs. I'm going to be extremely careful because it is still somewhat of a light power rod for saltwater, but we're going to find out how that performs. I'm actually really curious and kind of excited about it. But if you guys are wanting to do panfish and bass, this rod is the rod for you, in my honest opinion. I think that is all for today's video. I actually talked way longer than I thought I could have about this entry-level BFS combo, but again, Tsurinoya Dark Wolf Ultra, stock, Janko Double Down BFS rod. All of this is available on Bait Finesse Empire, and I will include some different line choices for you to try on Bait Finesse Empire as well. And I'm actually also going to throw a link to Mule down in the description down below. I really appreciate everything you guys have done for me. Just so a quick little mention, I'm actually not moving to South Florida anymore. I know I talked about it and got really excited, but at this time I just don't think it's the right decision for me. But I think that's all I'm going to talk about. I'll update you guys on job life, on stuff like that on Instagram. If you guys ever ask, I'll answer. It's no big deal. But I think that's all I'm gonna stop talking about my personal life on social media because I get people hyped up and then I just disappoint them. It's kind of funny. But I'm really happy with the situation that I'm doing now. As I'm staying in Tallahassee, I think there's still a lot for me here. And I'm really excited to do some more fishing around Tallahassee. I really appreciate everything that you guys have done. I appreciate all the kind comments on latest videos. I really appreciate all the support because there's a tough time in my life that just passed through, but I'm coming out of a storm and I'm hopefully not heading into another one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you guys want to pick up anything down below, you know where to go. And remember, guys, fish